live? I think we are. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to All for United. So this is your Reading review for the last night's game. I'm joined with a great panel tonight in Barry, Dan, and Anton. So, guys, you just want to introduce yourself?
Hello, everybody. My name is Anton, and I'm back on All for United, ready to talk about our amazing 3-1 win against Reading.
I'll go next. I'm Barry. I shouldn't really need too much of an introduction. If you've ever been on the women's channel, I spend a lot of time over there with Connor. And if you've been watching us all on this channel over the last couple of weeks, I'm the poor fella who got a cramp in the middle of a chat and nearly kicked my laptop off. So we look forward to more fun and drama tonight, I'm sure.
You are on mute.
Mute, pal.
I know. Yeah.
I'm not on
There
mute.
you go. Try again. You all right?
There you go.
Can you-
There you go.
All right, I'm going to say I wasn't on mute. Yeah, I'm Field. I've basically just a fan. I've been following All for United for a while when it was Ben, and obviously Connor's took over. So yeah, I'm glad to be back on.
Great,
Nice.
guys. So yeah, evening to the comments as well. We've got the women's channel actually watching tonight. So nice to see you. We've got a regular
Great
in
2-1
Jarvis.
win, by the way.
We've got the Sportsal. Nice to see you guys. We've got John, a regular face on All for United. And we've got Ronak as well. So yeah, nice to see you all in the comments. Make sure you put your comments and keep giving your opinions and stuff. So we'll get right into it. So let's actually review the game last night, because obviously that's why we're all here. That's why we're talking about it. It was an interesting lineup. I can say that's for sure. It was. It's hard to explain really, because when I saw that lineup, it was nothing that I expected it to be. I expected Erik ten Hag to fully rotate the squad. I kind of expected Jadon Sancho to be with the squad, but he wasn't with the squad at all. So it was a confusing lineup, that's for sure. So Barry, I'll ask you first. What were your thoughts on the lineup? And did you think Ten Hag was going to go strong, or did you think he was going to rotate?
I mean, I thought he'd go strong. I didn't think he'd go that strong. I mean, that was like Man United eating their spinach for Popeye, that, wasn't it? It was brilliant. And I like that. I was really proud of him for taking it seriously, not mucking about. We've had a heck of a chat over on the women's side about whether or not Skinner should have gone strong this weekend as well. I just think you've got to. You know, we're in a bit of a trophy famine at the moment. We haven't won half as much as we could have done and should have done. So for me, 100%, you've got to go out there, put your best team out there. You can't afford to take any chances, really. I don't feel, we've got to do the best we can. And that's the reason why we're still fighting on all four fronts. I know that the title's a dim and distant possibility now, but there's 3 other trophies there up for grabs. We could go for the Mickey Mouse treble if you like. So we'll try that one instead, shall we? But for me, you've got to go for it. So really pleased that he went strong. There was a couple of changes. Interesting to see Maguire back in the team. There's been a lot of a chat about whether he should be there or not. I thought he played all right, to be fair. So yeah, it was interesting. Not too many changes, and I think we've got to be quite pleased with that personally, and it showed because we dominated the game really.
Yeah, Anton, do you just want to give your opinion on it?
I think the strong lineup is owed mainly to the fact that we beat Nottingham Forest by such a convincing scoreline on Wednesday. It means that we can probably rest a lot of main players, players like maybe Casemiro. Now that Rashford's record, I guess, is in the bin, he could probably get a rest as well. That definitely would have been playing on Ten Hag's mind. When you're in such good form and you have the chance of breaking the club record, which has now equaled. You do play in every match, and now that that's gone, I think we might see him rested. We're going to see hopefully a lot of fringe players like Palistri, Garnacho. I'd like to see Kobbie Mainoo get a few minutes, maybe even start. We probably will have Maguire and Lindelof at the back again, or they start Varane and Martinez and bring them off. But yeah, I wasn't expecting that strong of a lineup. I do agree. I do agree there, but I guess we can't complain. It was an easy victory. It's just a shame that Eriksen did leave Old Trafford on crutches. I guess that's the one bad thing we can say to Ten Hag. Why did you play him? But that could have been for anybody. We could have played a fringe player and they got injured. I guess football's football, innit? But yeah, I wasn't expecting that strong of a lineup.
Yeah, Dan, do you just want to talk about your opinion as well? Did you think it was going to be as strong of a lineup as it actually was?
No, I would go with what Anton said, to be honest. I think the fact that we beat Forest so convincingly has meant that you can rest people maybe in the upcoming fixture. I think as well, I think he's justified when you look at the results over the weekend. So you look at who's left in the FA Cup now as well. It's probably a good idea that he went strong. Liverpool have now gone out as well. So I think there's only us and Man City, really, of the bigger teams that are left. So performance-wise, I thought it was really good. I'm glad he went with a strong team because we've not won a trophy in 5 years, and taking him seriously is what he's got to do. There's no guarantee we beat Barcelona. I think we discussed it last time. So yeah, I think it was a good idea to go strong, and obviously the injury to Eriksen's probably the downside of it. But no, I think he got most of it right.
So for me, I completely disagree with you. I think that I was expecting Erik ten Hag to fully rotate the squad. I was expecting Jack Butland to make his debut. I was expecting a player like Brandon Williams to start. I did think Maguire and Lindelof should have played, so I think he got that decision right. But again, Malacia was playing, and really, what's up with Luke Shaw at the moment? Because he wasn't in the squad on Wednesday.
Ten Hag said he's ill.
Yeah.
Right, okay. So, and obviously Casemiro played. I mean, I would have played McTominay and Fred over Casemiro and Eriksen.
McTominay's injured.
Is McTominay injured? All right,
Yeah.
okay. Well, it's one of them. I just wouldn't have gone as strong as he would. I would have gone for like the likes of Garnacho and Palestre maybe to start, or maybe even Elanga starting. So, and obviously it's cost us that a player like Eriksen's been injured, because I'm very mixed opinions on Eriksen. I think that going forward he's great, but defensively he's a liability. And that always gets a few comments on Twitter, that's for sure. People call me delusional. People call me all sorts that I can't say, for obviously we want to keep it PG. But apart from all that, I feel like Eriksen is a defensive liability, because I think that the Arsenal game is just one of our most recent games, proved it, because I think it was Ødegaard was running directly. He ran past McTominay and then straight past Eriksen. All Eriksen does is stand still and sticks his foot out. And Ødegaard just dribbles past him, and then there you go. And that's our last man, and it goes straight to our defence. So, and I think we can all admit as well, Eriksen was brought in to be that number 10, to like rotate with Bruno. He was never expected to be the starting number 8. So maybe that's because we didn't get Frankie de Jong. Maybe that's because we got Casemiro instead of de Jong. Who knows? But all I can say is that Eriksen is a liability defensively, in my opinion. But when he's creating, when we're playing a team that sits back and we have high % possession, that's when Eriksen dominates the game. But I think he's been overplayed, especially with the conditions and stuff that he's got.
Yeah, I think we have to be careful when we talk about Christian Eriksen, because all throughout his career, he's never been a player that's going to jump into a challenge or do this and that when it comes to defending. So I guess we can't be surprised with his defensive output. But I guess you're talking about the Arsenal game, so I'll give you an example. Saka doesn't score that goal if it's not Eriksen there. If it's anybody else on the pitch defending that one-on-one, Saka doesn't get the opportunity to take a shot. So although it is frustrating, I'm not surprised, but I guess this is what we have to deal with the people that are in charge of the club. If you get one player in, that's probably all you're going to get. We didn't get who we wanted. Casemiro wasn't even the first choice, but he just happens to be the best midfielder in Europe right now. So we got lucky with that. It's a real shame Eriksen's injured, because even though he doesn't give the defensive output that I guess we would want, he does a lot. He assists a lot. He creates chances. He helps Bruno out. He has a pair of extra legs and a pair of composed extra legs in the middle of the pitch as well, something which we haven't been lucky enough to watch at Manchester United for a good few years now. So, I mean, I still think he's a very good player. I think he's improved us a lot, but he is injured. So I guess the opportunity with the last couple of days of the January transfer window to improve does come. Who says no to Yuri Tillemans in that position?
Yeah, I mean, Yuri Tielemans is a player that people think is bang average. This cut like they say he's perfect at Leicester. That's his best level. But realistically, I think Yuri Tielemans has a bigger ambitions than that. I think he wants to be playing in the top 4 teams. I think he wants to be playing in Europe. And
Yeah,
I think he's good enough. And even if he's not, surely he's better than Fred and McTominay.
yeah,
So anything for me in our midfield currently is an upgrade. If we get a backup holding midfielder, then that's great. If we get a backup box to box, then that's great. If we get a backup number 10, it's great because United need players at the moment. And I want to get on to the next segment in a minute. So obviously I just want to hear from Barry and Dan first. But the fact is that would you take Tielemans at United? Because for me, I think he's a good enough player. He's caused United numerous frustration when we've played Leicester in the past. So, what are your thoughts on that player?
I just think it's a very interesting conversation point you made up there. But I think whichever way you look at the midfield, it's not as cut and dried. When you consider we were playing Fred for the bulk of last season and the amount of bile that got spread out about them two playing together and how upset people were with that. I think ultimately when you're going to play with a double pivot, you're going to want not just players that go into a tackle, but players that are then able to distribute that to the front four. And the problem that you've got there is that McTominay was committed, he was passionate, he had all of those things, but wasn't necessarily the best ball playing forward, so he wasn't going to be able to set things up perhaps as well as someone like an Eriksen might. Fred's very similar. He dives into a tackle very easily, can easily give something away that you wouldn't necessarily want them to. So really we're in a situation where you've got two options. Yeah, you do either try and sign somebody else. We've got a bit of time before the window closes. It's whether or not the Glazers want to open up their bank balance, considering they're in the middle of trying to sell the club, hopefully, touch wood. So I think that's one important point you've got to look at. And then the next part of it is, who have you got to replace them? We've tried so many people in that position. You've got Fred, who I think is perfectly adequate. He's got what it takes to play there. And actually, I think Fred and Casemiro, being both Brazilian as well, would have quite a rapport there. So that is potentially something we can explore moving into the next segment of the season. McTominay can do a job there defensively. If what you're saying is you want someone who's not a liability defensively, I feel McTominay can do all right there. Will he struggle against some of the bigger teams? Probably, but then there's a lot of people that will happen with. You can say that about Hannibal, who John Commode just mentioned could potentially be coming back. If we call back Amad Diallo, he's more attacking anyway, so he wouldn't necessarily fit in that position. Zidane Iqbal, all of these players that we could potentially bring up, they're going to have those problems as well because there's a naivety there. So it's always lovely when you start bringing out your shopping list, people who you'd like to get, but ultimately it comes down to what Eric wants. And I think if there's one thing that man has earned over the course of his tenure so far, it's the ability to be trusted to pick the right players and do what he needs to do. So I appreciate that we as a fan base might want Tielemans, we might want somebody else. I'm perfectly happy for him to make the decision as to who comes through. I just think that as a fan base, we can be very reactionary about how certain players have played. And I think Eriksen's given us a lot going forward. He's only going to give a certain amount potentially coming back. They can't all be as brilliant as Casemiro's been. So, I think it's a tricky one. But for me, the obvious replacement is to just put Fred there and see how he gets on. And personally, I think that could be a match made in heaven, guys. Who knows? We'll have to wait and see.
I mean, he did score last night, so it was obviously a Brazilian. It was such a Fred goal as well. It was such a Fred goal that he scored. But no, I see your point, and obviously you did mention Amad Diallo, but he has been playing as that number 10 for Sunderland on his loan, and he's doing quite well. So maybe I think he could become a much more like a Bernardo Silva type player, Amad Diallo, where he started off as a winger, but then becomes because he's so his low center of gravity, how agile he is, and how good he is with dribbling. I think he could become a Bernardo Silva type midfielder, which is something that United kind of need. But realistically as well,
if you want to bring those forward players, then you need to go away from the double pivot and go to a single one, which might mean Casemiro just having to marshal the back all by himself.
Well, that's what it normally does, isn't it, really? Because when you see what happens is that this is just the way I see Erik Ten Hag's system, is that when you see Casemiro drop back and to make a back three, the fullbacks become a lot more inverted, which become almost secondary midfielders. So that's the way I say this system. But obviously, when we're attacking, they become a much more overlapping. So I'm making them crosses. So that's just the way I see it. And obviously, you might see it a bit differently, but I feel like it naturally is a single pivot as it is, with Casemiro as the full stay back while attacking holding midfielder. And then obviously Eriksen mainly stays on the edge of the box, and then Bruno's the one making the runs into the box. So that's just the way I see it. I mean, we're linked to Marco Reus yesterday, which was an interesting signing. Would you take him on a 6-month loan deal? Yes. I don't know. Well, Anton's already said yes.
Yep.
I feel like that Royce is a good player, but his ankle injuries is what concerns me. And if we was to sign him on a permanent deal, I think I'd feel a lot more like 5 years too late type of deal. But again, we're going for a rebuild right now. We've currently got Veghorst on a 6-month deal, so we might as well do the same with Royce, because again, we're playing 3 games every 8 days until March. So it's a crazy amount of fixtures we've got coming up, and we're going to need all the rotation, all the players we can get. So that's why I was surprised that Erik ten Hag also didn't rotate last night, because of how many games we have got coming up.
I do think Anton called that right, though. You know, the fact that we absolutely spanked Forest, it begs for that game to be the rotation, really, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think we're speaking about Marco Reus at this point, when you're a player of that quality, with that experience, I know he has a horrific injury record, but if we can somehow get 6 months out of him, that's just an extra player. That's squad depth. We need squad depth. Whether you want to admit it or not, we kind of are in a title race. If City are, we are, because we're keeping up with them. And we're there or thereabouts. We need all the extra help that we can get. You've got Chelsea signing every single player that gets linked to Arsenal. You've got Arsenal making signings.
I'm so pissed about Gusto going to Chelsea as well. I'm
exactly.
so pissed. I'm fuming. He was the one right back I wanted. Oh, when I saw Fabrizio Romano tweet that, I literally had my head just went into my hands. I was just there like, no. You can take Enzo Fernandez, you can take Jude Bellingham, but Gusto is a player I really want.
Slow down. These are 2 young, very good players who I definitely don't want to be. I mean, if Enzo Fernandez is going to leave, I'd rather him go to Spain or somewhere. I don't want to see these players playing against us in the Premier League. But those are the type of signings that Chelsea are making, which makes it even worse for us, because yes, we are the team left in all 4 competitions, but 1 injury to Casemiro, and we're about 2 match days away from being out of all of those competitions. That's the difference between us and other teams. Manchester City get an injury, they have another player. Chelsea get an injury, now they have the squad depth. Even Tottenham, they might not be the best team, but they have a lot of players and they have a lot of squad depth. I think I said Arsenal, but I'm not sure. They have the squad depth now. We get 1 injury and we're finished. We get an injury to an important player, especially in the midfield, and we're finished. We've got Eriksen. I personally haven't heard anything about how long he might be out, or if he's even going to be out for a game. It might just be a precaution or something like that. But if he's out, then you've got Fred coming in. Some people love him, some people hate him. I've always said, and I always will say, no matter how hard he tries to get the ball back, I've seen him pass the ball off the pitch way too many times. We can't be dealing with that when we're trying to win matches. We have to be getting quality and depth, and that's why I've mentioned Tielemans. We need to be getting that right back position fixed up, because even though Wan-Bissaka's playing well, Ten Hag doesn't actually want him. Gusto was the perfect opportunity. We could have got him last summer. We could have got Caicedo for 5 million last January, but we didn't. Now he's going for over 6 million. We're missing out on a lot of players, and I'm very, very scared. You know, it doesn't matter how optimistic I am and happy I am with us right now. I'm very scared about the possibility of us getting 1 injury and just crumbling on. Imagine Rashford gets injured. You see, when he went down the other day against Nottingham Forest, I was panicking.
Yeah, same.
Luckily, he just got elbowed in the belly, but I was panicking, because if Rashford's out, that's it. That's it.
Exactly. And the thing is as well is that what I've kind of liked what Erik ten Hag has done is that he's kind of nurturing these young players. Like we've seen a bit more of Palestra over these last 2 games. We've seen a bit more. Well, obviously Garnacho at the start of this season, he stepped up and started developing really well. So Ten Hag's shown that he's not scared to actually develop these players and throw these young players in. It's only if they show him that he's ready.
Yeah.
And I feel like that the wingers, in particular in Garnacho and now Palestra, is only because of like the likes of Sancho being out. I think if Sancho was fully fit and didn't have these current issues, and I don't think we ever would have seen Garnacho get game time for starters. But
sorry, I'm going to cut you off. That's one thing we need to be careful with. Sancho signed for us over a year ago. We can't let the owners and the people in charge pretend like Sancho coming back is a new signing. Because I've been seeing a bit of that. Whether or not it's a joke, we can't let them get away with that because they've done it before.
He's been the thumbnail, hasn't he, for the training videos on YouTube? Yeah. Saying Sancho's back. I'm just there like, so what? Hopefully he scores more than 3 goals this season. So Sancho hasn't been the greatest signing, let's say. Hasn't Anthony already got more goals than him than what Sancho's currently got in a United shirt? So
I don't know.
It must be close. It must be close. But anyway, I'll move on to the next segment. And Dan, this first question's for you. So we've kind of briefly talked about how the actual starting 11 last night was questionable. Some of you agree with that it was the right decision. Some like me, I didn't think it was the right decision. Do you think that's down to Erik ten Hag wanting to win every single game, or do you think it's down to the fact that he actually doesn't trust his squad and that's why he's having to use his main 11?
So I was of the opinion that he didn't trust his squad up until probably last week, and I'm starting to see it a little bit different to what other people are. So I was absolutely set that he just didn't trust the players. I think last time I was on, I said I don't think he trusted his players. Starting to maybe think that he just wants the players to really earn the chance. So like you mentioned, Sancho coming back in straight away after being off for so long, and it didn't happen. And I think maybe other managers in the past would have just put him straight back in. But F seems like content with making sure if a player gets game time, Palestra would be an example, they've deserved it on the training field. And I do think it comes back to such a big result against Forest. He wants to get through the FA Cup. He wants to be in the running for another cup. And I do think we'll see changes against Forest coming up. But it'll be really interesting to see what changes actually happen, because I'm not convinced that they're going to be massive. But also, he should make some. Like, I'd like to see Mainu get more games. Palestri's surely got to start against Forest. Garnacho. I don't see him starting Weghorst either against Nottingham Forest. He's going to need a rest because we're going to need him in the run-up. But no, I genuinely think that he does trust some of the players more than others. And he will make a few more changes for Forest. But I do think he wants to be in everything. And I think he knows that, in essence, the more runs at a cup he's got, especially, like I say, with who's gone out the FA Cup in terms of the start, surely he's thinking we can lift a bit of silverware this season, finish top 4.
Yeah.
Got to be.
Yeah, I completely agree with you, pal. And the fact that, if you turn around and offered to United fans that we're pretty much in the final for the League Cup, that's pretty much like guaranteed.
Touch wood.
And touch wood, yeah. But if you were to offer United fans at the start of this season top 4 and a possible trophy, I think all of us would have snatched your hand off.
Yeah, 100%. Even if you said 4th in the League Cup, they would have snatched your hand off.
Because at the end of the day, is that we've been inconsistent when it comes to getting top 4 over the last few seasons now, and it's pretty much nailed on that I think that Erik ten Hag has blown many United fans' expectations out the water, and that's why these expectations are now starting to get higher and higher and higher. People started talking about, are we in a title race now? Can we do a domestic treble and stuff like that? And it's crazy talk, because I personally am enjoying this hype train. I think that it's great because the fan base actually seems like together for once instead of we're all divided. So Erik ten Hag has brought this fan base together, in my opinion. And I think it's great to see, because, again, all we want is United to be back on top. So, Barry, coming back to you now, has Erik ten Hag blown your expectations out the water?
No, because I expected him to be good. That was never under question. The minute we got rid of Rangnick, I mean, I was sad Solskjaer went, but that was a different matter altogether. Not because the performances were brilliant towards the end there. He did it at the point where he had to go. But I do think that was maybe more external. If there's one thing you'll learn about me, I'm a relatively positive person. It takes quite a bit to make me negative wherever we go. But no, for me, I 100% believe that Erik ten Hag would take us on to bigger and better things, and I've seen nothing yet to show me otherwise. We've been talking about some of these players and whether they should play or earn their position, and 100% you earn your position. And I think a lot of people are forgetting the fact that we're actually doing really well at the minute. I mean, I said it before, I'll say it again, we're still in the running for all 4 trophies, and we're the only English team that can claim that. There's no other team that's in all 4. So I think it's quite important that we sit and just take a moment to recognise that. You know, we look at the League Cup. Newcastle, you would assume, are going to go through based on the way they've played. I'd be amazed if it's not a Newcastle versus Manchester United final, if I'm brutally honest with you. So you look at the other 2 teams, though, Forest and Southampton. Nobody saw that being your semi-finals, I don't think, at the beginning of the season. You'd have got about 1,000,000 to 1 if you'd have picked those 4 as the semi-finalists. We're doing really well with that, and we're doing really well with it because the players that are playing really well, and Erik has just he's got it. He knows what he's doing. He's picking the right players at the right time. Look at Wan-Bissaka. He was left out for a bit with Dalot at right back, and now he's come back, and all of a sudden Wan-Bissaka thinks he's Cafu. You know, he's doing all sorts of stuff.
It's really Cafu.
Exactly. You know, we've got players that I wouldn't be surprised if we see McTominay come back and he starts being Johan Cruyff. It's just the sort of thing that Erik ten Hag seems to be doing.
Scottish Cruyff.
I'll just jump in on that as well.
Could you imagine it? What film it'd be?
I think that genuinely started from when Casemiro came in and McTominay was playing well. Casemiro didn't get straight into the team.
Yeah,
it was 2 or 3 games before he let him in the side because McTominay was playing well, and I think it just breeds. So if that's what the expectation is, the players know what they've got to do.
Correct. You've got to do that. You can't just go, I'm going to rotate it just for the sake of rotation. I know that's what Fergie did. I know that he enjoyed doing that. I know, but how many times did we do that? You said we wanted to start the game against Reading potentially with a heavy rotation, but I can guarantee you, if we'd have got knocked out of the competition, you'd have been, angry that we didn't do as well as we could have done.
Yeah.
So you've got to put your best team out there. The pressure on these managers nowadays is too much. We're never going to see the likes of Ferguson taking over and having a couple of years to save his job. And performing the way that we are nowadays, if you're not done within a season, it's game over. So I think we've just got to allow ourselves to just trust that man, because I see nothing from him at the moment. Even the way that he's dealt with him, the way that he dealt with Ronaldo in that situation, this man he's got cojones. He really does. He's just got the cojones of steel. So as far as I'm concerned, Baldy's best.
But do you not think that as well? I know Erik ten Hag is a very good manager. He might have been the perfect manager for us when we were looking for a manager. But comparing him to Rangnick and Solskjaer, not so much Mourinho, but isn't he just doing what any manager would do? Any normal, good, high-quality manager would do. I think we've been starved of somebody in the hot seat that is actually good for so long, that him doing normal stuff that Graham Potter would be doing at Brighton, or Arteta doing when we're seeing this happen at our club, it's like, wow, this is like some amazing thing that we haven't seen for so long. But in reality, we could go and do the same thing. I'm not going to play someone that doesn't deserve to play.
When you also look at the managers, I mean, I mentioned that I was quite positive for Solskjaer. You've got to remember there was progression there every year. We finished 4th, 3rd, 2nd. And then Ronaldo came in. And whatever happened with Ronaldo coming in, it just blew this club apart. And everything that we had just went.
Yeah.
And what we need to remember is that progression was under these players. So it's not like we've got a bunch of players that aren't good enough to play at this level.
Yeah.
It was just we had a bunch of players whose confidence went entirely out the window. It all went entirely wrong, and they weren't performing to the level they could have done. Maybe it wasn't for the manager. Maybe it was because they didn't like some of their teammates. But I think now Eric's absolutely brought the good times back in that respect. But you're 100% right. He's doing what we at Man United would expect a manager to do, even with the way they deal with the media.
I think he's brought in a winning mentality. Look, I know we haven't won a trophy yet, but it's impossible because we haven't even finished the season. But the way he talks in interviews, he talks about Anthony, he needs to be more direct. He's telling us what we know. He's not hiding stuff. We're winning 3-0 against Forest and he still looks angry. Directly comparing him to Solskjaer, I can just imagine a world of difference in the changing room. I was speaking to my friend the other day. We had got into a little bit of an argument about she was saying to me that I know we lost against Arsenal, but at least we beat them in October or wherever we play them. And I said to her, that's the reason why we haven't been successful in the past few years, because she just reminds me of Ollie, because you think Erik ten Hag went into the change room afterwards against Arsenal and said, don't worry, guys, we were never in the title race anyway. We were never going to win the title. At least we beat them at Old Trafford. You think he went and said that? No, he's going in that change room and tearing them apart. He's tearing Wan-Bissaka apart. He's tearing Eriksen apart and letting them know their mistakes. He's not abusing them or being mean to them. He's just letting them know this is where you went wrong and you need to fix it. Otherwise, you won't be in the team. We're trying to win every competition we're in. We're close enough to the top of the table. We could have been 5 points behind Arsenal if we beat them. If Wan-Bissaka didn't make those 2 mistakes, if he looked over his shoulder one more time, if Eriksen put in a tackle on Bukayo Saka, there's such fine lines between. If that might have been Ollie, he would have been in the press conference saying, oh, we gave them a good game. We scored 2 goals. It's just a little missed, blah, 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 because he's done that before. Erik ten Hag wins and still demands more from his players. That's why he goes into a game against Reading with almost a full strength side. The only difference was the 2 centre-backs haven't played together in a while. He's trying to win every single competition. Whether or not we make it, at least the intent is there. And I think us as Manchester United fans, we're so happy to be seeing this. It's almost like something we haven't seen since Sir Alex Ferguson was here. Maybe Mourinho, because he was trying, but he just genuinely didn't have the backing from. It went sour again, but that's a different thing.
Did Mourinho say that getting second with United and winning the Europa League is the greatest achievement of his career? So, because Mourinho knows the mess that United were in, and that's when I think United fans started to realise how toxic our club actually was. Obviously, we know Glazers out has been a massive thing since the Glazers have actually been in power to United. Yeah. But really, realistically, over the last 5 years is where it's all massively spiked up. And that's just my take on it anyway. But yeah, and we'll move on now because there's quite a few people in the comments talking about loan moves and stuff. So Jarvis has spoke about how could United do a loan move at the end of the window. We need a number 8. I would try and get Fofana or Guendouzi as a deep playmaker, but as a permanent move, it's still De Jong or Barella. So I personally rate Guendouzi. I've not seen too much of Fofana. I'm pretty sure he plays in the French league. I'm not too sure. So, because I think there's 2 different Fofanas. There's one who's French and one who from Ivory Coast. So there's 2 Fofanas. So I'm not really sure which one you mean. But Guendouzi, again, I really rate him. I thought when he was linked to Arsenal in the summer, that would have been a great move for him.
Wasn't he? He played for Arsenal.
Yeah, he played for Arsenal.
Yeah, he did play for Arsenal, and then we went to Marseille, didn't he? Then he was.
I thought it was a loan.
That's what I thought.
It was a loan.
I thought it was a loan as well, but I'm pretty sure they bought him out. It must have been a loan to buy deal, and then they were talking about how he was supposed to be going back or something like that. But the realistic thing is that will United actually sign anyone first of all? And Anton's already shaking his head, but like I've seen people on Twitter talking about how is Erik ten Hag just constantly playing his full squad and actually risking injuries to try and make a point to the board. And I just said that that's just going to. I replied to them tweets saying that's just going to massively backfire because the Glazers are looking to sell. The Glazers obviously don't really care about this club anymore. So really, what's the care to them? And that's just the way I see it. But I would happily take Seko Fofana or Guendouzi because it's an extra man in the midfield, like we said with Marco Reus before. any player right now is anything. We've lost Van der Beek. That was already a bit of a tough one because he is our more rotation midfielder. But now Eriksen, who's is our main starting 11 player, is out as well. So because we all know if Eriksen was to get injured before Donny, then Donny would have come in for Eriksen, no doubt, because they're the more similar type players. But yeah, the Ivory Coast one for Fana, Jarvis has said from Lens, him. But I'm just having a look at what John said as well. He said United may look for a late loan, but I don't know who. I would try and get a midfielder back in by the end of the window, try and take advantage of the Juventus situation. I completely agree. There's two players that I would love to have at United from Juventus, and one's Dusan Vlahovic. I would love him at United. I think that he's just one of the best upcoming strikers in the world. And I also would like Paredes. I think that he had a great World Cup. I think that he's a great midfielder. And I want to know your thoughts on Paredes, and would you take him at United because he plays a box-to-box and he also plays a holding midfielder. So he could be that guy who rests Casemiro, for example, or comes in when Eriksen's injured, for example. So would you take a player like Paredes at Manchester United?
I can leave this one to Barry.
Yeah, Barry or Dan, whichever you want to talk.
I do this to Connor every single time, and as far as I'm concerned, we're looking at a title here that says the Brazilians light up the second half, and I kind of want to just stick with them. I want to see Casemiro doing his thing. I want to see Fred dancing to the samba beat. I want to see Anthony practice, and eventually I'm going to celebrate the minute I see him use his right foot whilst he's on the right flank. Honestly, I think I'm going to celebrate that more than I celebrated Solskjaer's winner in '99. It'll be great when it actually happens. Honestly, we're going to have everything. There's going to be Mexican waves, the lot. It's going to be a Southern American and Central American delight. I do it with kind of, like I say all the time, I leave transfers to people far more intelligent than myself. Could these players do well? Absolutely. But I'm awful when it comes to a discussion about transfers because for me personally, I don't care. I just support the players that come in. I've got players that I'd like to have, but if we were playing a shopping list one, it'd be the Fantasy Premier League, wouldn't it? So, I don't. I just, whoever they want, bring them in. My question would be, do you think these guys are actually better than the ones we've got? Like I say, we're not doing badly with what we've got.
I'll jump on that one. I'm a bit worried. I think we said it earlier. We're a Casemiro injury away from being back to McFred or something even a bit weak because obviously McTominay's injured at the minute. Personally, I like McTominay and Fred. I think they've done really well under Solskjaer. They've always played probably at the top of their level. That level, whether that level is good enough to start for Man United, it's up for debate. But they've always been at the top of the game in terms of probably what their ability is. I think Paredes is on loan at Juve from PSG, so I don't even know where we'd be able to get him or not.
Loan, right, okay.
Yeah. So I don't think we'd be able to get him. I think we just need reinforcements at this point. It's whatever Ten Hag wants, really. Does he just want to stick with the youth players we've got and give them a chance, bet them in for next season because we're overachieving? In my opinion, we're overachieving this season. Or does he want just a little bit of reinforcement? I personally would go for a bit of reinforcement of like you say, Tielemans could be an option. I mean, Dan's in for a bit of a surprise if you don't think Eriksen defends very well because Tielemans is one of the laziest defending players I've ever seen in my life. I've seen him literally full sprint and then just start jogging as someone's ran away from him before.
So it's the midfield Martial.
Yeah, pretty much. But no, it's for me, whatever Ten Hag needs, he should get. He's not going to get it from these owners. They're obviously on the way out. They're not going to spend the money. I think if it's anything, it's going to be a minimal loan fee for somebody.
Yeah.
I think it comes back to summer. It's a shame we got rid of Garner. I would have kept him.
I was literally just about to say that. I was going to say a play about like how important would Garner be right now for us?
He would definitely be a perfect backup in this situation.
Is he at Forest?
No,
he went to Everton, didn't he?
Everton. I haven't seen him. Has he
he's
been
not
playing?
kicked the ball. No, he's not kicked the ball.
because the thing is though, is that just to add on that point, who was that Nottingham Forest signed? Who was it? Gibbs White from Forest.
Wolves.
Oh no, it was Middlesbrough, wasn't it? Who was it?
They signed him for 40 mil from Wolves, I think.
Yeah, it was from Wolves.
He was on loan. He was at Wolves, but he was on loan in the Championship last season.
Yeah.
I can't remember which club it was.
I think it was Middlesbrough.
He went for 40 million for having a good loan spell, but James Garner got sold for 13 million.
It was a silly fee, wasn't it?
It was so ridiculous, and for the Glazers being tight-asses the way they are, like you'd think that they would actually have tried bargaining with Everton.
Yeah,
but, yeah.
I think as well with loan signings, especially this late in the window. I think by now we know that anything that does get done is last minute, as in we need to find a player right now that Eriksen's injured and they haven't really been thinking about it. But Ten Hag is in control of the transfers, and we know how he is as a manager. He doesn't take any rubbish from players. He's not gonna bring a Guendouzi in because he's known to have attitude problems, or he's had bust ups with every manager he's been with. I can't imagine Ten Hag willing to take a risk on a player like that. Although I do want Tielemans. I think Dan just said I've seen a clip as well. I feel like we might have seen the same clip.
It's definitely the same clip.
Yeah, he's just not moving. He's
he just
not
stops.
moving.
Yeah.
Ten Hag won't want that. Ten Hag will want a player that is gonna fit the bill, and not 5 out of 10 on the list that he wants. It's gonna have to be 8, 9, 10 out of 10 boxes ticked. Tielemans might only tick 4 or 5. Yeah, he's great on the ball. Yeah, he scores screamers every now and then. But if he's not going to put in the work to get the ball back, he's not going to be in, the place to score these goals or thread those passes through. Guendouzi is just a bit of a hothead. We don't want that. Talking about Juventus, I don't know why everybody hates Pogba so much. He got bought into a team that had no backing. We don't need to unlock Pogba before anybody thinks I'm going to say that. But he was playing next to McTominay and Fred. Everyone's like, oh yeah, but when he plays for France, he's good. He's playing next to Kante when he plays for France. He's got Mbappe in front of him. We've got McTominay and Fred next to him with Jesse Lingard in front. There's a world of difference. He's a world-class player. If we could get Pogba on a 6-month loan, no obligation to buy, he's coming back from injury. I don't see why United fans will say no to that. If anything, that's just genuinely an agenda.
I'll tell you why I wouldn't take Pogba. I think from I was reading something the other day. He's played 18 games in 3.5 seasons. It's not enough.
Oh, wow.
That's a big one. He really has. He's a massive injury risk at the moment. He just doesn't play football. And to be honest, we've just got rid of all the toxicity, I
don't think it was a toxicity. I think it was a Lingard's and that.
Not necessarily in that way. His attitude just wasn't good enough throughout it all. And that was my biggest problem. I watched him, and I like watching footballers that play with smiles on their faces, that actually try hard. Or if they're not got smiles on their faces, scowls like Roy Keane, where he looks like he's about to murder everybody on the team. Opposite. Those are the two things I like to see. What I don't like to see is nonchalance. Like when Martial plays, when he's on it, oh my God, what a player. He's absolutely brilliant. But when he's just wandering about, Rashford's done it. We've seen, countless players that just have a little wander about. Don't like that. And I think, that's the big thing for me. Whatever we do, I just hope that he's going to pick some decent players if he does bring them in. I mean, my biggest question at the moment is whether or not Weghorst is going to be up to it, or if we've just sort of signed another Igalo in that respect.
100% we've signed
the job.
I think Weghorst's been fantastic
been good.
in terms of just target man to play off, and I think that's very much what me and Dan discussed it on the last one. I personally think Ten Hag's not playing the way he wants to play fully because David De Gea is just not his kind of goalkeeper. He can't play out from the back. He don't control his 6-yard box, and I think you would see a different brand of football to what we're seeing now. So the players would adapt better to it, which is why Anthony's got so much grief. But in regards to the way we need to look forward to the loan, bringing someone in, I don't think we've got enough in midfield at all. I really don't. I think losing Eriksen, as much as Dan thinks he's a liability defensively, we're with the run of games we've got coming up. I think it's some like 10 at Old Trafford, 8 away.
Until mid-March.
Which is against teams we're probably going to dominate the ball on. So it's a massive shame that he's injured. We definitely need something in this window.
That's why players that's why Kobbie Mainoo. I love Kobbie Mainoo. I've been a big advocate of Kobbie Mainoo ever since
he's looked fantastic. To be fair,
he's my favorite. I love Garnacho, but Kobbie Mainoo is my guy. I'll rep. If I get a signed shirt, if you're watching this, Mainoo, send me a signed shirt because I'm your biggest fan. I saw him live at Old Trafford.
There's a player coming through the youth setup who I actually really like called Maxi Oyedele, and I think
I like him as well.
He looks top as well, and he looks like a good midfielder.
Yeah.
But we actually are. This is the United and Reading match review, and we haven't really reviewed the match. So let's actually talk about the matches itself. So, do we need to talk about the goal conceded on the corner? Because a lot of people were blaming De Gea, Maguire.
There was no marking.
There was just no marking. Let me start again. Maguire was actually marking the correct man. He was marking his man. He didn't lose him. But then what happened was Lindelof completely just gets the complete wrong observation of where the ball's going. It completely goes over his head, and he's marking Malacia for some reason. And Van Sakker's on the goal line for some reason. And De Gea's obviously, we know De Gea doesn't come off his line for crosses. So the team really, when you know your goalkeeper doesn't come out for crosses, that's when the team should be defending that a lot better. And the fact that it was a free man is what made it a lot worse. It's not that we've conceded the goal to Reading because obviously we were comfortably winning the game. Reading just took their chance. But for me, I think that corner is where we could go wrong. And that shows the levels of certain players in this team, because I feel like if Varane was in the if Varane was playing instead of Lindelof, I think that goal doesn't go in. But I feel like that just shows that certain players, because also on a set piece, you have to keep your focus at all times. I mean, a great example is when Netherlands scored that free kick against Argentina. Obviously, no one expected them to go low, and the concentration was just them to go high. But they didn't mark the Weghorst, who got the open pass and got on the shot. But
it was a good corner. It was a good corner, and it was a good header.
I was going to say the same. I think the delivery has been underrated.
Correct. And what everybody did was, as per, people decided to get on Harry Maguire's back. And I think what they've forgotten there is that Harry Maguire was being literally undressed as he scrambled as hard as he possibly could to try and get to that ball. If there was one player who you were going to say was actually trying to attack that ball and stop it from happening, it was Harry Maguire.
I second that.
For me,
I agree.
The person you blame for that is Victor Lindelof. You just said it. He misjudged the flight of the ball. He decides to go and mark Malacia, who's already marking a player anyway, so it didn't require a double up. David De Gea had no chance with that one. Unfortunately, that one's on Lindelof.
I'll say Casemiro has to take some of the blame as well. I know it might not have been his man, but at the time of the header, he's the closest to the guy.
I think that he gets a bit of a yank on the arm as well, though, so I sort of let him off a little bit on that one.
This is why you've got to love football, because I'm going to blame somebody completely different.
Oh, hello.
Anthony.
Wow.
So if you watch the corner, Anthony's man runs away from him, and he's so desperate to counter-attack because they've only got 10 men, he leaves him completely. And as the goal goes in, Anthony knows he's looking at Ten Hag like, I've fucked up here, I've made a mistake.
Yeah.
I've lost my man. So I think ultimately it was Anthony's man to mark, and he's got a bit too excited because they were against 10 men at the time. But there's a picture, because I saw that Maguire was getting a lot of the blame. There's a picture going around on social media, and Lindelof, Malacia, and somebody else are marking one man at the front post. Maguire's got one guy pulling him and marking his man, and still spots the man that's been left on his own. And I thought, I personally don't rate De Gea coming for cross and stuff, but I don't think it was his fault. It was such a good corner as well. It was whipped. It was perfect.
You said it perfectly about how free of our players were marking
the front man. Yeah,
completely bad defending. It was a great set piece from Reading, and it was just poor from us, and that's all we've got to say. But speaking about the game though as a whole, what did you think of Casemiro's performance? Because the way that link up with Anthony for the first goal was brilliant. Like I love how Casemiro has started making these more forward runs, because I think that he's got a good shot on him, and he does terrify defenders. If you've got Casemiro charging at you, and he's not relatively quick, but he's powerful, and I think he causes a lot of fear in people's eyes when he's charging at him. But you've got that second goal. I mean, if I don't know, if Mbappe or Messi scores that, they get called one of the greatest players in the world. But if your holding midfielder has that in his locker, then what else does he have in his locker is what I want to know, because he's already a fan favourite. He's already pretty much sellotaped our entire midfield and just made it a lot better than what it currently is. And now he's scoring goals. I mean, he scored 3 goals, and I think it's 4 assists since coming back from the World Cup.
4 goals, definitely
4 goals. Sorry, so
at least, or it might even be 5. Actually, I'm not sure.
Exactly, he's in incredible form at the moment, and yeah, Casemiro was my man of the match, but for some reason it was given to Anthony because he created a few crosses.
With Casemiro, for me, I'll say this with my chest and so confidently, I think he's the best midfielder in his position in the world at the moment. Other people will disagree because he plays for us. At Real Madrid, he was part of the dynasty that they had 4 Champions Leagues in 5 years, but he goes unnoticed because he's playing next to Modric and Kroos. He doesn't need to spray those passes out like Gerrard used to do for Liverpool. He just give it to one of the 2 central midfielders next to him. There's one goal I think he scored against Napoli, a volley in the Champions League, which I'll always remember. So I've always known that he's had that about him. I mean, he scored one in the Champions League final, took a big deflection against Juventus, but he does have that, I guess, ability to shoot from distance. The goal to me didn't make sense though, because there was no backlift. It looked like he was digging the ball out from behind him almost, because I would think the pass from Fred was a bit overhit, but it did take a little bit of a deflection. But I'm not surprised. He's playing with confidence. He's playing like he enjoys football more than I've ever seen him play before, especially at Real Madrid. He's come in, he's shouldered the responsibility, and then some. I guess it's perfect. He's got his ex-Real Madrid teammate behind him as well, and he's got another Spanish-speaking centre-back. That definitely will help. I don't know how good his English is, but being in a team where you've got someone that speaks the same language as you, or multiple people that speak the same language as you, definitely will help with basic communication. I guess Eriksen obviously doesn't really offer the defensive know-how that I guess Kroos or Modric might have delivered, but I think those 2 together are perfect. I don't have anything negative to say about Casemiro, and I think that's the first time I can ever say that about a Manchester United player. I think he's the perfect player for us. But apparently, Fred knew about the deal Fred said that he knew about the deal 8 or 9 weeks before. So what was Ten Hag cooking? Because he was trying to get De Jong as well as Casemiro. Maybe that's something for the future. I
mean, if we did have Bruno, Frankie de Jong and Casemiro, that's one hell of a midfield.
That's crazy.
That's a crazy midfield, and this is why I get in so many debates, and I do it to myself. I get into so much trouble on Twitter by saying I would rather Frankie de Jong and Enzo Fernandez and Jude Bellingham, and so many people disagree with me. But I'm just like, it's my opinion. You guys prefer Bellingham or Enzo Fernandez. I personally think they're still too young and too inexperienced. Yes, they're great players, but Frankie de Jong is perfect for us, I think. He's that deep playmaker who does track his runners and is good at going forward.
I think not only that, I think the word proven is key for me. So Casemiro's is just proven at every level. He's done everything. And De Jong, I would say the same. He's proven at a high level. So we've seen with Sancho. I always had doubts about Sancho. The money he was on, the price. I think that would be the same with Bellingham. The money is going to be massive. The price is going to be massive. And he's doing it in a Dortmund side that are doing all right in Germany. They're not pulling up trees this year, but they're doing all right. We need that proven player again, I think. I think we won proper proven player away from being somewhere special.
Yeah.
I mean, I think with
Like,
Casemiro,
you might call me crazy, but I think if we was to sign Frankie De Jong, we're like Arsenal, where we've got an established first 11. That's great, but if we get injuries, that's where we struggle, and that's exactly what Arsenal are currently doing. I mean, what Arsenal are trying to assign Casado in January. They've put a 60 million bid in that's been rejected by Brighton, and now apparently on Twitter they're going in for a 70 million bid. So, and you saw that they're serious because of the money they were offering Mudryk. So they have that money available, which is just crazy, in my opinion. But again, that shows what competent owners do. And what I like about Arsenal as well is that they're not full of oil. They're not Saudis. They're a normal club who's wealthy, but they knew that they weren't going to be in a title race at the start of the season. So that was probably reserved cash for the next season. But now they've seen they're in a title race. They can possibly win the Premier League. And now they're actually keeping that hope alive by signing these big players to keep Arteta happy and to keep their title challenge realistic, really.
I think you were talking about Casemiro there, and I mean, as the song goes, he's done it all. He's won the lot. He's the famous Casemiro, and he's never going to stop. Ole, ole. So I think it's important that we really do highlight just how good it was. I mean, that first goal, the run. I mean, we're talking about his age, and I think Jarvis. This guy speaks a lot of sense. I like him, but this was the big thing for me: is that it is his age. What do we do in a few years? But I think at the moment, what we need is someone who is here for the next couple of seasons that's going to help us just get that foundation from which we grow. That's what you need. He's the anchor that sort of holds us in position and then passes the torch. So I was delighted. That first goal, the way that he ran past with Anthony, setting him free, was absolutely brilliant. And the top class
finish as well.
Unreal.
The finish was so good.
No dramas. But the second goal, controversially, I think the goalie should have done better. It was
I think it's a little deflection.
It's not top corner. He's plenty of time to see it. I felt he could have had more. I rewound it a few times. I'm like, no, he probably should have got that. And I think he'll be annoyed with himself as well. But doesn't change the fact that Casemiro is just absolutely unbelievable right now. And, I don't think it matters who plays alongside him. He's going to automatically lift them just because of who he is and what he can do.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. And Casemiro being this player, to help us during this rebuild is crucial, and I'm glad to have him on board. But what no one else is mentioning is that, look at the likes of Luka Modric. He's currently 37. He's going to be 38 this year,
yeah.
And he's still one of the best midfielders in world football. And for me, I personally think Casemiro is going to be that player, because what I like about players like Casemiro or Modric is that they've not relied on pace their entire career. They know they're not the quickest players, so they rely on technical ability and pure skill. And when, obviously, as you get older, you do lose your speed. This is why Messi always wins the GOAT debate for me over Ronaldo, is because Messi is a technical player, when Ronaldo, like Thierry Henry, for example, is a player that was built on flair and skill and pace and strength and all that stuff. So when a player like Casemiro comes into your squad and who isn't always been the fastest, he can stay until he's about 35, 36 maybe. So I think he's got a lot more than 2 or 3 seasons in him. But what are your opinions on that?
It's about the reading of the game. That's the big thing. That's why Sheringham was so good. It wasn't because he was a world-class striker. It was because he could read the game and he'd get there before you'd even thought about what was going on. It was just, that's it.
Yeah, I agree.
All right. Well, obviously, we've pretty much spoke about everything that I really wanted to speak about, really.
I've got one more thing. Do we really think Rashford was offside for that goal?
He definitely wasn't.
I'm incredibly annoyed by the interpretation of offside at the moment, because it very clearly says if it's a deflection or it rebounds, then the player's offside. But if you are deliberately playing it, then that starts this new phase, because apparently you have phases now for offside rather than it just being like it was before. And he blatantly flicks his right foot out towards that. He makes a deliberate action towards the ball. The fact it doesn't go where he wanted it to go is irrelevant.
It happened with Wolves versus Liverpool, didn't it? There was a ball through to Salah, and the defender plays it. So my personal opinion is the law is wrong. They should be offside. If you play the ball to somebody and they're offside, as a defender, you're going to play the ball because that's what you're taught to do from the ages of 5 onwards. But by the letter of the law, he shouldn't have been offside because the defender deliberately played the ball. So Rashford should really be taking home a record, and he's not taking home a record. So it's frustrating. It's really frustrating.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Before we end the stream, it's been a great stream, by the way. Thank you to all the comments. I just want to speak about this comment from Thomas about how should Garnacho start on Wednesday. So for me, we've all pretty much spoke about in this stream tonight as well about how Wednesday's game is going to be probably the rotation game, which I am looking forward to. And I do agree with Thomas. I think that, well, not obviously he's asking a question, but I think Garnacho should start. I think that he's been starved of a starting game for long, and I'm looking forward. And I'm looking forward because I'm actually going to the game at Old Trafford on Wednesday, so I'm really looking forward to it. So yeah, I do hope I do see a lot of rotation. I am expecting to probably see Varane and Maguire at centre back because Lindelof hasn't had two good games now in a row. Lindelof's been given that chance against. Obviously, did he play against Crystal Palace? Is that what Lindelof did? No, or was it Forest he played against?
I cannot remember.
I'm trying to remember because I know it wasn't Lindelof's first game last night. I think he played the game before, which was the Nottingham Forest game. I'm pretty sure he came on for the Crystal Palace game as well. I'm not too sure, but I would personally start. I would definitely start Maguire because I thought like Maguire. So I would play him, and I would play either Martinez or Varane. I wouldn't play Lindelof. I felt like you still want to win this game, and obviously we know Lindelof and Maguire don't have the best of partnerships over previous years. So we don't want to actually risk losing this game because even though we've got a 3-0 lead over Nottingham Forest, I personally think that Forest are going to come to Old Trafford with nothing to lose. They're going to go all out attack and they're going to try and win the game because realistically, Nottingham Forest are in a relegation battle and this is probably their only chance of silverware this season. But what are your opinions on that?
I don't know. With the centre backs, I think I'd be a bit different from you. I'd start Varane and Martinez against Forest. I don't think it's good to leave a player out for 2 games or 2 match days and then drop them straight back in. I've played football. Obviously, I've not played professional football in the Premier League, but I've played football enough to know that even sitting out for a week and then playing the next match is a bit tough. You're rusty, your legs are heavy, you don't feel right. So I feel like he'll start or at least give Varane and Martinez half an hour, 35 minutes at the very least, because obviously those are the first choice defenders that will be against Nottingham Forest. I can't actually remember who we have after Nottingham Forest, but I wouldn't expect to see Maguire and Lindelof playing too much football over the next couple of weeks.
I think what Crystal Palace and Leeds.
Palace again? Oh yeah.
Because we've got Crystal Palace next weekend. Is it on Saturday? I think it is. Yeah,
I believe so.
Yeah, it's on Saturday, then we play Leeds. So Leeds is the replay game, isn't it? Then we play Leeds again right after, don't we? On the following weekend.
Yeah. So we've got, I think, two home games and then an away game against Leeds.
Yeah.
And then is it Barcelona?
I think that's after the Leeds game, yeah.
Yeah.
So
speaking of, I don't know, I saw someone, I think it was Central Devils, the Twitter account, about how Ousmane Dembele is out for 6 weeks now. So we will miss both fixtures. So I think that's a bit of exciting news that we can go into. But I don't know if you guys remember, but Lisandro Martinez is suspended for that first game against Barcelona for picking up too many yellow cards. So hopefully, hopefully Shaw's back for then and he's that left-sided centre-back. But only time will tell. But we've got many games before then. Obviously, we've got the game on Wednesday. So I'll ask for your score predictions now. So what will your score predictions be?
Wait, before that, yes, I think Garnacho should start against Forest on Wednesday.
Who do you think, sorry?
Garnacho should start against Forest on Wednesday.
Yeah,
I think that was the
Garnacho,
this question.
Yeah, I think Garnacho will start as well. I think he'll rotate it. I don't think there'll be a massive rotation. I think it's one of them where he'll get to sort of 45, 60 minutes and then start to ring the changes. You make 5 subs, so that's probably what he'll do.
There was a couple of matches ago, definitely against Arsenal, because I was out watching it and I was with my friend, and I said he's definitely going to make changes on 60 minutes, and he didn't. He hasn't been making changes on 60 minutes as much as he was. It was almost like a scheduled thing, but it doesn't seem to be anymore. Maybe he's.
The last night was a great example, really, wasn't it? Because as soon as that second goal went in, that's when Ten Hag immediately had the substitutions ready. So I think it was established that once we went 2-0 up, that's when Ten Hag started making changes. So we're probably, because obviously we're technically 3-0 up on Wednesday, we'll pretty much probably rotate the majority of the squad. I do hope Sancho's in the squad on Wednesday, that's for sure. I don't want him to start yet. But I do honestly think that Sancho should get a game under his belt, because if he doesn't get a game on Wednesday, it's going to be very hard for him to get back into the squad, I think, because realistically, Ten Hag has proved he wants to win every single game. So, and I feel like a player like Sancho, his value is decreasing every day every game he doesn't play.
I think it benefits Ten Hag if we can get him back in, get him on the football pitch with a smile on his face, and it is like, I know we don't want it to just be classed as a fresh signing, but it would be like a fresh signing for him.
Yeah, I think if Ten Hag's been doing what I know Mark Skinner and Serena Wiegman have both done, and they've been watching the United WFC channel, you'll have seen this, and this is what Connor's trying to say to me now. Barry loves his 60 minutes. I hate it. I hate this idea that you have a schedule where you go, if we hit 60 minutes and things haven't worked, then we start sending people off and changing them about. You react to the game. And absolutely, if he's doing it at 2-0, that makes more sense, because you are reacting to the game, not just because 60,000 people might well be stood there shouting at you to make a change, but where's their UEFA A license? So I think ideally you've got to try and have that trust in the managers. Do I think Garnacho will start? Absolutely. If this was Football Manager, I'd definitely be rotating my front line and giving some of the youngsters a chance on that, because we don't need to go and score the goals. Defensively, you're going to want to try and keep quite tight there. So it would make sense, as Anton says, maybe to give some minutes to the others that have missed out in terms of Varane and Martinez. But I think other than that, no need for any major change. It'll be interesting to see what the midfield is. Maybe we see the return of Super Scott.
Well, the last thing you want as well is you don't want to give Forest any hope. So if you fully rotate your squad and then they score in the first 5 minutes, it could turn into a very long night.
Exactly.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I just want to cover this as well. Hasn't the away goal rule been abolished now? I think that's because I know it has been abolished.
It'll be straight to penalties, won't it?
Straight to penalties.
Yeah, so if Forest was somehow to beat us 3-0, then I would go to penalties, I believe. Or would it go to extra time? Was it just straight penalties?
It's been straight penalties all season, so I'm not sure whether because it's the semi-final or not, it's different. But yeah, in the League Cup, it's been straight to penalties.
Right, okay. Well,
I thought the semi-final might go to extra time, but
it might because it's semi-final. It would be interesting to find out.
Ned saying that they might change it for semi-finals and things, but
I don't even think we should be speaking about the possibility of penalties or extra time. We're 3-0
definitely shouldn't get there.
3-0 up, and it should be a straight. It's not going to be easy. They're a Premier League side, but it should be a straightforward professional victory. Maybe 1 or 2-0. Nothing too strenuous with the players that 100%. Should or we think might be playing.
If we lose 3-0 to Nottingham Forest, then that's a bigger steal since Robin Hood was roving around Nottingham Forest. So
I'll be devastated. It won't happen. Let's not even speak it into existence. It won't happen. Probably be playing Newcastle in the final of the Carabao Cup. That will be on the 26th of February, I think.
Tell you what, I actually think Southampton are going to surprise a lot of people on Tuesday. I'm going to be watching the game, and I feel like Southampton are going to come back and win the game 2-1, and it's going to go to penalties, and Southampton are going to win on penalties, because I feel like
it is extra time. I've just checked.
Okay.
Say again.
It is extra time for the semi-finals. It will be extra time and penalties.
Right.
Connor, I've maintained my record.
So yeah, but yeah, been a great stream, guys. Thank you for the comments, for interacting and stuff. It's been a great stream, guys. Just want to say where we can find us. So obviously, I'll start first. So obviously, I stream on here. I have my spot now every week. So tune in next week, which will be next Sunday for the match reaction for Forest. It might be a different panel. It might be the same panel. I'm not too sure yet, but hopefully we were speaking great things about the Forest game and the Palace game. But yeah, you can find me on my personal channel, which is Red Devils TV.
Oh, Barry.
You'll find me here, just like literally in this box on most places. It's where I tend to be. Usually over on the women's channel, if I'm honest with you. And we've got a little game, a little review coming up tomorrow night. We'll be on All for United WFC. So please do come over and join us. We had a cracking win 2-1 away to Sunderland. We love beating teams in red. So yeah, bring them over. By all means, you'll see a cracking panel there. But that's where you usually see me, over on WFC. Occasionally over here, and if you're really interested in what I've got to say, my app's down there. But you know, I warn you, I tweet a lot about United, so there we go.
If you haven't already, make sure you do subscribe to All for United TV and All for United Women's channel. Leave a like on the video as well as hitting a subscribe button. But yeah, you can find me on Twitter at Anton Brooks AMB. I tweet mainly about football and stuff really. I do host and feature on here. So you'll see me on here again, I guess, the same as Dan. I mean, yeah. Sorry,
two Dans. That's the problem.
Yeah, that confused me for a sec.
Yeah, so I'm obviously just a guest again. Hopefully, I'll be on again sometimes. It's nice to be invited back. Obviously, my handle's just this side here. I stream on Twitch and stuff like that. So if you want to find me, I'm just on Twitter mainly. Again, just talking about United and football.
And tell the people what you stream on Twitch.
I'll tell you what, don't I stream on Twitch? Absolutely everything. FIFA, Fallout, Call of Duty, just whatever game I fancy, to be honest.
Nice.
All right, guys. So yeah, I wrapped up a great stream. So yeah, thank you for everyone for watching, and we'll see you in the next one. See you later.
Thanks.